By the Old Mill Scream is a rather sweet and uplifting Casper cartoon, but it's very slow. This was released in 1953. It's directed by Seymour Kneitel and Myron Waldman, and written by Jack Mercer and Meyer, with a voice cast including Jackson Beck, Jack Mercer, Mae Questel, Sid Raymond, and Alan Shay. And as always, Casper is cast aside and he goes off looking for a new friend, and he finds this little beaver. But this is 3 minutes into the cartoon, and the cartoon is only about 7 minutes, so it does take almost half of the cartoon to meet this other character, so the pacing really isn't great. But once we met the character, things became much more appealing, much more interesting. I no longer felt like I was waiting for something to happen. This poor little beaver isn't allowed to help the other beavers because his tail isn't long enough, he's not big enough, and Casper tells him it may not be very big, but I bet it's strong enough to carry this log. And I didn't see what was coming next, so there will be spoilers from now as I talk about what happens from that point. It's obvious once you know what happens, but I genuinely didn't expect it. And the little beaver picks up the log, but then we see Casper behind him carrying the log. He's doing this to help boost the beaver's self-esteem and make him feel like he can do something. He does this a second time. They put the log on the dam and there's actually a hole in the dam. So the beaver rushes to get some clay. But whenever he rushes back to the dam, it all falls off of his little tail. Casper sees this, and when the beaver isn't looking, he puts a huge clump of clay on its tail just as he arrives at the dam. So he thinks he's carried all of this clay back, and he does this to boost the beaver's confidence, and it's really lovely to see, and it's really sweet. I think there is a fine line between boosting confidence and giving somebody a false impression of their own abilities, and I think they do slightly cross that line a little bit. But at the same time, I don't think the beaver was trying anything that he couldn't do. So I think it worked out quite well. There was the risk of the beaver thinking, well, actually, I am big and brave, so I'm going to do something stupid, but that never happened. What did happen, and I'm not going to spoil this part in too much detail, but some of the other beavers get into a spot of bother, and the little beaver and Casper get a chance to help out and show that the little beaver actually has some value. And I thought that that was really lovely, and it's a sweet message, and I think it's one that can benefit a lot of people, particularly young children who might be smaller than their peers. And I feel like it's very common for children, the smallest children in the class, to either be picked on for being small or to just not feel as big and grown up as the other children or not as capable, which is nonsense, of course. Your abilities have nothing to do with your size, at least academically and in terms of meeting childhood milestones. So I think for young children, there might be a strong element of relatability here. But even for those of us who are older and still very short, I think there's a nice little message in here as well, that your size doesn't necessarily determine your abilities in other areas or indeed determine your worth. We also have some very cute animation. The beaver does look very adorable, and Casper looks very cute as always. The only real issue is that the pacing is pretty terrible. It's not really great. The first half, maybe just under the first half, is very, very slow. But to be fair, they do pack a decent amount into the second half. But the pacing could have been better. But that aside, I thought By the Old Mill Scream was a pretty sweet cartoon.